Psych major / psychologists of Reddit. What are some of the creepiest mental conditions you have ever encountered? Psychiatrists. 2. And since they seem to be answering the question as well, former psych ward patients. I was in a psych ward for depression, and my roommate was terrifying. She was schizophrenic, depressed, and also probably just weird. She punched herself in the face constantly, while whispering to the voices in her head. She also used to sit in the multi-purpose room TV, games, fridge, etc. on the floor and masturbate. Like, a lot. But she never stopped whispering to herself while she did it. I woke up to pee one night, and she was just in her bed, staring blankly at me. She was moved to a long-term facility on my 3rd day there. Oh god, I had similar experience with my roommate. He was this really big guy, very nice and well-mannered. He would tell us and the doctors during group therapy about how his mother didn't care about him. He told sob stories like many people there did, and it was sad but not unusual. Then one day one of the doctors mentioned something about a certain medication he was taking, and I recognized it as an antipsychotic. It turns out he was a paranoid schizophrenic, and it just terrified me when I put the pieces together. And then I overheard his mother sobbing as she left from a visit, and his father trying to calm her down and reassure her that he doesn't know what he's saying and it isn't his fault. Oh my god, if those stories about his mother are actually just delusions from his schizophrenia, I feel so bad for that poor woman. Feel bad for the man too. The universe he lives in, so far as he knows, is unstable, hostile, and frightening. He's just trying to make sense of it, which is why he needs somewhere safe to be. The worst thing I've actually encountered in terms of creepy was a little developing sociopath. He had history, fire, animals, sex, and was apparently high in coutres. He was about 11 when I first met him, so no one was going to call him ASPD or anything, but that's what he looked like he was growing into. Anyway, the kid is incredibly funny, smart, and charming. No one can believe what his previous school and doctors were saying about him. I was new there, so I was taken in as well. Then, one day he gets in trouble for stealing, and we had the proof on camera, but he didn't know that. I'm sitting in as a witness / security while he's going through this whole series of emotions: surprise, indignation, fear, anger, etc. as he pretends he has no idea why he's being accused. Then we show the tape and he just stops dead, blank expression, and says something to the effect of, "So what? You were just wasting my time." It was another voice, a completely different personality coming out of this kid, like you flipped a switch. I've seen sumps, but that moment was creepy as hell. Edit. Tons of questions and replies here. I'm trying my best to respond. Anyone else with experience, please feel free to jump in and add your 2 cents. It looks like there are a lot of genuinely interested people in here, which is awesome, and I hate to leave people hanging. That is incredibly creepy. Sorry if I'm being ignorant by asking this, but what happens to kids like this? Do you just let them back into society? Yes. Once you turn 18, your juvenile record doesn't really mean anything. You get a chance to start over. Being an adult with antisocial personality disorder is like anything else though. Some of them learn to recognize emotions, fake empathy, and generally stay within the boundaries of the law well enough to live their lives harmlessly. Others end up in jail. It's hard to tell which slot the pachinko ball is going to go into. That's why we can't really judge them too harshly too soon. What we can say is that it's more likely that they'll end up in prison than someone without ASPD. I've never heard of anything more psychologically incredible than a fugue state, when the mind can't deal with reality, so it just creates an entire new world for itself to live in. Or you just need time to deal with Taco. Not a professional, but a friend of mine is suffering the Capgras delusion. We moved apart several years ago and hadn't been in touch very well. I knew she had gone through some stressful times. I had a couple of phone calls with her where she was worried that her computer had been hacked, but she seemed reasonable. Then one day she called me and told me that her husband had been replaced with an imposter. She wanted me to fly to visit her so I could see him with my own eyes and confirm for her that it wasn't really him. Talking to her is simultaneously fascinating, unnerving, and heartbreaking. The worst part is, while she is clearly not correct in her beliefs, she is quite consistent in them, and they are utterly real in her mind. Imagine how terrified you would be all the time if you were certain that the most important person in your life was a stranger with mysterious nefarious motivations. Imagine going to bed every night next to someone you thought was out to get you. Imagine spending all day desperately trying to find your husband because he must be out there somewhere, right? Imagine being the husband, I talked to him for a while. He was unbelievably stressed out. He was doing everything he could for her. Meanwhile, she treated him like a stranger. Trying not to be rude, but maybe it is a good idea to tell the husband that he is in danger. Earlier in this thread, someone said that a person with this syndrome killed his father because he thought he was an imposter. A lot of people know about phantom limb syndrome, in which someone continues to feel as if their limb is still there after it has been amputated, often in great pain. Another interesting one that not many people know about, and is almost kind of an opposite, is body integrity identity disorder, which is when a person has extremely strong feelings that one or more of their limbs does not belong to them, despite being functional, and often they really want to amputate. From their descriptions, it seems that it is actually very psychologically painful, sometimes to the point that they will self-amputate because no doctor is willing to amputate a healthy limb. I once read a short fictional story where the narrator is talking about the terrifying deformed growths on his hands and is frustrated that everyone is downplaying his worries and pretending he's normal. Eventually, by the end, he decides to deal with it himself, and he uses power tools to remove all 10 of the disgusting growths. How could you remove any more than 5 though? Table saw. Reactive attachment disorder. I worked at a group home for kids with this disorder, and it was creepy before I fully understood it. Children who have suffered severe abuse and neglect early in life often have their ability to form healthy attachments to caregivers or anyone destroyed. Some of them would cling to me, call me mommy, and beg to come home with me 30 seconds after I met them. Others would refuse to talk to anyone, hurt themselves and others, set fires and act out any chance they could. Sometimes they would improve enough to be sent to foster homes, only to have their behavior come back worse once they were placed in an unstructured family setting. It's extremely tragic. I guess that I've grown out of the violence and bullying, but I still do not really have relationships with people outside of work/sex/etc. It's scary to look back on it now, because I could have wound up in adult prison. But I used to lay awake at night and daydream about how I could manipulate the staff at my group home into killing each other. They were like Iaga level schemes. I figured out who was screwing who already didn't like each other, etc. I was even worse in foster homes. I bullied other kids for money and stuff, ran away constantly, stole everything I could get away with. I stabbed an adult in the leg when I was 10 because he called me ups, which was admittedly accurate. I tried to have sex with all of my foster moms and pretty much every other adult woman in my life. There are so few reliable long-term studies on RAD. Existing research suggests kids do grow out of it to the point where they no longer fit the diagnostic criteria as adults, but it still impacts their relationships. This is one of the reasons I think it's wrong to even suggest a child has antisocial personality disorder before age 18. Once you have that label, it sticks, and if a kid thinks they were born bad, they are more likely to act that out. I'm really sorry for what happened to you. It's not your fault. It's a normal reaction to the abnormal situation you were put in. I spent some time in group homes and foster care myself, and it's what caused me to study psychology and social work. You're already ahead of the game by being so self-aware, so please don't give up on continuing to heal. Yeah, in retrospect I can see how I reacted to people's expectations of me acting badly. Everybody was so busy warning me against losing my temper, I thought it was something that was supposed to happen. So I'd pretend to be in a rage to get what I wanted. I think the single biggest reason I got better was that I moved out on my own, so I was in control of my life finally. I didn't feel like I needed to control other people to control my environment. Even though I was semi-homeless, it felt good to be able to do whatever I wanted. Oh, I know. Now, nobody's been diagnosed with this in 40 odd years or so, but it's still taught in most undergrad courses because it's a really good example of a culture-specific disorder. It's called Wendigo psychosis or Wendigo, Wihitico, or Wintico, and here's how it goes down. You're a young male in an Algonquin tribe. It's been a long, cold winter, and your whole tribe is starving. You and your hunting partner have been out hunting for moose or deer or even a bear, if you have to, but you've totally struck out. You're starving. He's starving. And you've seen the way he's starting to look at you over the fire at night. So you do what you have to do before he does. You kill him and eat him. You know what happens when you eat another man, but you're starving, and it's cannibalize or die. So you eat him. and the Wendigo comes and possesses you. Because the Wendigo possesses everyone who eats someone else. And now that the Wendigo has possessed you, you're hungrier than you were. Hungrier than you've ever been before. But the only thing you're hungry for is more people. So you back to your tribe, and one of two things happen. 1. You tell someone, and they attempt to cure you by having you eat melted bear fat until you vomit the heart of ice you now have because you are a Wendigo demon. 35% of reported cases were cured by this method. 2. You don't tell anyone, got back to your tribe, and attempt to kill and eat a family member. You will eventually be stopped and killed during your murder/cannibalism rampage, and your remaining family members will burn your body and scatter the ashes to prevent the Wendigo from possessing them. To the other 65% of reported cases. TL. Doctor, Wendigo psychosis is when you think an Indian demon possess you, and then you try to eat your family. The hunger, eh? I guess Charlie wasn't lying. Fatal familial insomnia is pretty freaking scary. Suddenly, you just start not being able to fall asleep, and you're gone within 7 to 36 months. You gradually lose the ability, along with a number of other symptoms over time, until it eventually, at the end of the last stage, you'll have not slept in a long time, will have been hallucinating and suffering from dementia, and eventually die. Only 40 families, about 100 people, have the disorder. Also, if you have it, there's a good chance you'll have kids by its onset, making the disorder pass down ever further. Scary stuff. Diseases caused by prions are really scary. Every one of them. And all fatal. I live with a longtime friend who I'm convinced is developing/has developed disorganized schizophrenia over the past 3 years. It's not as crazy or mind-blowing as some of the other ones on this thread, but it is truly ups up his life and making it exponentially harder for me to tolerate him on a daily basis. More bizarre than anything. In the past couple of months, especially, he has exhibited extremely antisocial and disorganized behavior. Everything from inappropriate emotional reactions to regular life events, to an inability to form complete sentences or thoughts in a conversation, to just plain old pss around with people by not making any sense, sometimes on purpose and sometimes unknowingly. He used to be an extremely personable guy, who could approach anyone and make friends. Now he literally can't hold a conversation, but still wants to be really approachable and personable, but doesn't realize that he actually creeps people out so much that they will passionately avoid talking to him again. The most frustrating thing that he does is basically attaches to me whenever I'm at home. He will stand at my bedroom door and watch me do my homework, fold my laundry, clean my room, work on my computer, build Legos, etc. And he will always be in the same room as I am, unless I have shut my bedroom door. He mimics my actions, wakes up whenever I do, goes to sleep whenever I do, always wants to cook or clean whenever I am. I essentially have to find things that he can't or doesn't know how to do to get some freedom. It's mostly me, because I've known him for way longer than my roommates, but when I'm not home, he does all of this to them too. I think this all stems from his inability to make basic decisions, like when to eat, or where to study, or when to leave, in order to be on time for something. This extends to almost every aspect of his life. I've been seeing a counselor to consult with her about it, but it's basically impossible to know anything for sure because she can't tell me any information about him or his visits he started going as well. I don't know if he goes to them unless I ask him, and there's not telling when he will forget about a session or just decide not to go to a doctor's evaluation. It's even more frustrating that this counselor keeps telling me that I shouldn't keep reminding him of these things or keeping tabs on him, because eventually I will be like a mother taking care of an infant child. My words, not hers, and she is right, but it is upsetting. Weirdest part, he's studying behavioral neuroscience. TL. Doctor, I've been friends with my roommate for over a decade. In the past 3 years he has developed disorganized schizophrenia right in front of my eyes, and there's nothing I can do about it. He's echoing, repeating your behaviors and actions as a way to cope. Some will do it in conversations as well, latching onto a phrase of importance and repeating it. The rain is really bad today, yeah, that rain is bad. It's a sign of cognitive impairment. Your story is sad,